What's up, YouTube? All right, here's the quick update for this week. Really no changes on the frag system. The big changes is I set up a new tank. This baby's been running for about, I'd say 12 hours. You know, and I just moved a bunch of stuff that I already had going. I ended up breaking down that little tank in the corner, and I ended up breaking down the quarantine and moved those guys into said tank. I still have this tank in the corner over here, but I actually brought in some acros from another friend, and they had some red bugs on them, so I just don't know what I'm going to do with this tank yet. I want to make sure to dip and dip and dip and dip and dip to not catch any pests or anything like that. This tank is, like I said, been set up for about 12 hours. It's still cloudy. There's a long story behind it, but basically I ordered a trigger sump like a week ago. The tracking said it was supposed to be here yesterday, and it says it got delivered, and I went outside, there was no package. Turns out it got delivered to the wrong address. I have no clue where it got delivered, but it didn't get delivered here. I had to submit a claim. Long story short, I'm out of a sump. So what I had to end up doing was I ended up just getting a tote, and I just put the Vectra in to return the water, but it's just as simple as it falling, and then I just made this dumb little it's just a container for calcium media, but I drilled the holes at the bottom and I filled it to the brim pretty much with filter floss, and that's been really clearing up the water for me. Obviously it's overflowing and not doing the job that it's supposed to be, so I'll change out that floss in here in a few seconds. But for an instant tank or a day one tank, this thing's looking pretty cool. You know, like I said, just a quick update for you guys. You know, this is just, like I said, a temporary setup until, this is not a temporary setup. This is the permanent setup, and I can break down all those temporary setups. These fish are here temporarily. My friend's taking an RV with his family around the United States and Canada for the next few months, so he wanted me to watch these fish. And instead of me driving all the way across town to feed 5 fish, I just said, hey man, bring them here. This guy is really friendly, and I mean to the point where I seriously think this guy's gonna let me pet him type stuff. But as soon as I dropped in a snail, he just went after him. I mean, it was like a professional hitman, dude. He just cracked him, flipped him over, blah, 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 you know what I mean? It was crazy. So he's not really reef safe in that sense, but you know, we'll keep an eye. We're just not gonna put snails and shrimps in here, obviously. So that's the update for this tank. Oh yeah, quick a little more update on the equipment is, so yeah, I added 2 EV8 bars. I added a PM1 so that way I can have the pH and the temperature readouts for this separate tank, because it's completely separate. You know, I have the Vectra L1 for the return. I ended up adding a 1-inch check valve just in case the power goes out. I don't want this tank draining or something for some reason. I'm gonna add probably I think an MP40 maybe, or MP60 on that side. We're gonna see how it sits. And then you know, the radons, I'm gonna put on a rail, elevate them above the tank, because yeah, I don't really like these arms no matter which way they look. I think I'm just gonna elevate it with a rail or something. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, this is the new setup, in addition to the frag tank that's already running really good. I didn't want to touch this tank at all, you know, with the dosing and the sump, and everything is just doing well in this tank. So I really didn't want to mess with it, you know what I mean? Why mess with success? I'm actually keeping some of the coolest acros I've ever been able to keep for the first time here in this tank. So I'm just trying to leave stuff alone. I really don't want to mess with this system and just start throwing curveballs at it for any reason. Look at this teal tenuous thing. Doesn't look so good underneath the camera, but yeah, again, I don't really want to touch this system. It's thriving. Everything's finally dialed in after about 1.5 years of growing. All the pests and everything's just finally handled. So I don't really want to mess with this one. Here we go. We're starting over the journey. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do as far as separation yet, but the idea was I was going to try to make this more of like a softie. I was going to try a lot more shrooms in this tank. Just a lot of shrooms, you know. Just let them actually stretch out, because they're all kind of shoved in corners and shoved on little tiles and stuff like that, where they're all on top of each other. And I'd like to maybe let some of these guys open up and actually really be happy. So anyway.